Ah, Alex, hello.
Hello.
It's like technical glitch there before we before we jumped on after that spectacular opening.
Good start.
For those people watching, not many people yet. I'm Lance Nielsen, one of the co-founders of the Outcasts Creative. Alex is one of the members who has worked with me for many moons now. Feels like we've known each other most of my life.
Was it 2012?
I think it was
2012, 2013.
London Screenwriters Festival.
Guerrilla Filmmaking Workshop.
No, Guerrilla Filmmakers Weekend, hosted by Chris Jones.
That's
we
right.
First met at when I committed to making a feature film very publicly, so that I deliberately couldn't go back. And you worked on it.
That's right.
In various capacities, and have worked on other things with me since. And so your career is split between being a cinematographer, doing technical things for theatre, and also a bit of a photographer, cameraman, all-round nice guy.
Thank you.
And why not?
Clown.
And clowning. I was coming to clowning. I was going to play that sort of Homer Simpson clip where he keeps seeing clowns everywhere. I always think of that clip when I think of you.
With Barbara Streisand.
Yeah.
Is it Barbara Streisand?
It's the one where he does the clowning workshop. Doesn't he do the clowning workshop? He has to learn how to pedal the bike and.
Right. I was thinking of the Krusty comeback.
Oh.
Do you remember that one?
I do. So many episodes, though.
Yeah.
So many episodes. So tonight we're going to jump around a bit. We're going to talk about the great year that was 2022 and some of the great and not so great cultural things that we had. Did you catch the stream I did with The Drinker?
I did. I only sort of dropped by to watch sort of 10 minutes, but I ended up watching the whole thing. It was great.
Ah, well, that's nice. I'm a moderator on his channel, which is kind of how we know each other. And he's been on a couple of times now, and very graciously, as with 1.5 million subscribers, doesn't really need to bother with small content creators like myself who are in the embryonic stage of their journey, still trying to get my head around this whole YouTube thing. But quite a lot planned for the channel for 2023. We've got a lot more industry interviews coming up, quite a few actors that I'm hoping to bag. A couple that have said yes to me repeatedly, but just finding the right time slot to get them on is proving difficult, working around their availability, my availability. The Outcasts are going to do a live stream performance on this channel, we think towards the end of March, which is for a play that was specifically written to be performed online. It's not written to be performed in a theatre. And we're going to talk about the Magnificent Seven script in a bit, because that's the artwork that I put up. So we should talk about it. And of course, the Pegasus Bridge screenplay was released. That was the project that both you and I worked on for a very long time that didn't happen. May still happen yet. But 2022, not a year that I will look back upon fondly, I have to admit. Big changes.
Yeah. Those who know, right?
What's that?
So those who know.
Yeah, indeed. Big changes. And there were some great positives that happened in 2022 from a creative point of view. I wrote the play about the post office scandal, the Horizon post office scandal. We performed it in 2 theatres around the UK. Loads of people came to see it. You can never make any money doing fringe theatre, so it wasn't a financial project. It wasn't a project we did for financial success, because we knew that would not really be the case. But the important thing was to get the message out there and to give them a voice that they sorely needed, which was coming from a space that wasn't their own, I think. And
yeah.
you came to see the show in Birmingham. How did you find it? And I don't think you knew anything about the story before.
I didn't know a thing. Yeah. Well, my parents also sort of wanted to come see it because I told them about it, and so after work we all set off and we came to Birmingham to see it, and it was great. Like it was funny, sort of unexpectedly in surreal ways, but incredibly thorough, as you'd expect a Lance Nielsen show sort of play to be, sort of written in that sort of diligent, well researched way. So and I could just tell as well, I think I probably detected this afterwards, actually seeing the people from the actual real life historical event or events as well, their faces, that you did them proud as well, and you could tell that you wrote it in such a way that honored everybody that needed to be honored, basically.
Right.
And if not, you probably amalgamed sort of two people just for pace. And
yeah, all the characters in that production were amalgamated in, certainly on the side of the sub postmasters. When you're writing a true story script, you have to combine and condense, especially if you're trying to tell a massive epic story in a 2-hour running time.
Yeah.
You've got no choice. And actually, I didn't combine characters for the Pegasus Bridge script because that was a really tricky thing to do.
Yeah.
I really wanted to avoid that. But with the post office play, it was much easier to do because I wanted any postmaster that came to that show to be able to recognize themselves on stage somewhere.
Yeah.
So combining several true stories into one gave it that sort of resonance for people, I think.
That's right. And you could tell by their faces they were sort of smitten's the wrong word. Obviously, it was distressing, sort of traumatizing time for them. But they were sort of glowing, and I'm trying to describe their look. They weren't bewildered, but they had that sort of look on their face of, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to do with that. It was just.
You're talking from a point of view of the sub postmasters that were in the audience watching the play. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
And by the way, those people that have joined us and are watching, and there are a few of you, thank you very much for tuning in on this this nearly at the end of December, nearly at the end of 2022. If you've got any comments or questions, just chuck them in the chat there. We're going to be covering a few different topics here tonight. I mean, I was very proud of it, no doubt. And the play got shaped considerably in rehearsals, and then there was a lot of editing and cuts that happened actually during the run in Birmingham. I cut several bits out just to get the running time that bit shorter, which I think worked well.
At that point, are you sort of just shaving down lines, sentences, or are you taking out chunks and rearranging?
It was a bit of both, really. I mean, there are some things you can't really tell whether or not they're working until you see them performed on stage. And then there were a couple of other things, like we had one character who turns up in hell at the end, or sorry, he's trying to get into the gates of heaven. And there were two of the villains were trying to get into the gates of heaven, and there was a bit of interaction between them, but actually I realized we didn't need both of them in that scene, and the finality for one of those characters was in an earlier scene, so I made that their last scene and cut that, and that just trimmed the fat on that scene quite considerably. There was a whole other scene in hell, the scene that actually had Jimmy Savile in it on stage. That scene got cut before we actually it was in the first few rehearsals, and then I thought actually all we need is the line that says he's in charge of hell, and that's where you're going. We don't need to see the person arrive there, really.
No.
And everybody was worried about Jimmy Savile getting a mention in the play because we're so concerned about offending people all the time these days.
Yeah.
But I think theatre is a place where you should constantly strive to take risks.
Yeah.
And I knew, because of the context, that we were using his name in the play, as in the Lord of the Underworld, and God, you know, isn't that the right place for him to be? I knew that the sub postmasters would love it, because of course the person that they hated, that's where they were going.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you really hate someone and you want to wish something bad on them, well, you spending eternity with Jimmy Savile doesn't come much worse than that, does it? You know.
Yeah.
So I'm some of the cast were worried about it, and I actually made a point of every sub postmaster I met, what did you think of that line? What did you think of that line? And they all loved it. So yeah, you know, but yeah, that was probably the high point of the year, especially the last night when we called all that. There was a whole load of sub postmasters that came on the last night. I mean, there was some at every show pretty much, but there was about 30 that came on the last night, and we called them down onto the stage to take a bow with us.
That's incredible. Yeah, I saw the picture.
Yeah, that was a really, it took everything I had not to break into tears. It was so emotional.
Yeah.
I know there's a great photo of me and Dickon with that going on, and us almost crying. And
yeah, well, you seem quite emotional on the night I saw the show as well.
That was in Birmingham. Was that on the Friday?
I think it was midweek, Wednesday or Thursday, I think.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that was a good show. My recollection of Birmingham is that the first night was good. The second night was, we had one night that was a bit ropey, where a big chunk of the play got missed out, and I forget which night that was. But I think it might have been the second night. And then because did we do 5 performances or 4 there? I can't remember now. But no, it was good. You know, it was quite something. Actually, yeah, I've got that photo. I can, using the amazing technology, I can share screen. And
I was thinking you should. I don't know if you ever would, but you should get somebody on your channel to interview you, because I mean you've had an interesting year, but you've had an interesting life as well. And I think what I quite liked about this move, you know, talking about fringe theatre, unfortunately you're putting in the context of it not being a money earner, but sort of it's getting back to your roots really. And I just think you've had a really interesting career that not many people would know sort of the genesis of.
Yeah, most of my plays have been about social injustice, and they've never had any. I think I've had one play that had any kind of proper financial support. They've all been done by the skin of their teeth with practically no budget. And it's always been, the priority's always been getting the message out there. This picture, there's 3 of the cast in there, 4 of the cast, sorry. So we've got Alan Wales on the left here, Kenny O'Connor, who I'm spending New Year's Eve with tomorrow night, behind him, who played Auditor 2. Alan played Postmaster 5, and then Dickon played Postmaster 5 in the London cast, and I played Auditor 1. The chap with his hand on my shoulder, he's pointing to me, is one of the sub postmasters. The big chap behind him, Tim Brentnall, is another one, and this chap on my left is another one. And I think there was about another 10 of them on the stage either side of us. And this was just at the point where he said, you know, what you've done is fantastic. You've given us the voice that we thought we'd all been forgotten. Oh, there's John O'Sullivan in the chat, who is one of the chaps who came down, who works for, I think, the Communication Workers Union, if I remember rightly. He'll correct me pretty quickly if I'm wrong about that. Yeah, I mean, God, what a night, you know. And it was. We're trying really hard now to get the play on again, and we've got 2 venues that are interested. We can't apply for funding for a tour from the Arts Council unless we've got only 15% of the tour can be in Scotland or outside England. So we've got a venue in Scotland, so that's 15%. So 85% of the rest of the tour has to be in England. Can't be in Scotland, can't be in Wales. We've got a venue in Bath that wants us for a week, so that's 1. So I need another 3 or 4 on top of that to say yes. And we're talking to some, but that's all. And that's just to apply for the money. Whether we'll get it or not is another matter entirely, you know.
Yeah. Are there other pots of money you can go after with sort of similar criteria? So
I'm looking into it, but I haven't found anything yet that's immediately obvious. I mean, obviously we're doing I think we've got a GoFundMe up as well, up online, and that was because there were a few people just saying, "Oh, I'd like to donate money towards you getting the show on. Where do I send it?" And we needed somewhere to centralize that, but I wasn't expecting to get massive money out of that. And I mean, I could get I think I get the GoFundMe up now. Maybe I should stop sharing my screen at this point. But I think we're around £500, something like that.
okay.
And yeah, I mean, you know, a few people have put money in, which is lovely. But I wasn't expecting us to get, you know, if you're going to do a crowdfunding campaign like GoFundMe, you've got to be on it every day, posting about it 4 times a day, and you've got to have content to post every day, you know, different content. Just by the way, just to log in, they've asked me for a verification code, so I've got to put that in now. Have a look.
Right. Oh, is that the sound your phone just made?
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm just curious because I haven't checked it for a few days actually. So in fact, I haven't checked it for over a week. Okay, number has been verified. So just going in, have a quick look.
Just when you start a meth business.
Yes, I mean £435, and there's a couple of outstanding expenses. You know, like I mean, I've been to Scotland to look at that venue, etc., etc. That was the only reason I went. I wasn't going on a jolly to Scotland. So you know, little bits of money is all well and good, but to put a play on when you've got a cast of we could probably cut the cast down to 10. It's 12 at the moment. We'll probably cut it down to 10, but you got to pay £100 per person per performance at least. So that's £1,000 plus a technician, and they're usually around £25 an hour. You're probably going to need them for you're going to need them for 2.5 hours per night, plus, you know, rehearsal and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then you got to have a stage manager there every night as well. So so your production costs per night are in the region of sort of £1,250 to £1,500. Times that by 4 or 5 for a week, you know, you're soon on your way to £7,000 thereabouts. And I said we couldn't put it on anywhere for 2 weeks without £15,000 because we've also got to transport the cast. So everybody's got to go, you know, to Scotland or to Bath or whatever. And with train fares these days, unless we all jump in a minibus that's hired, but regardless, you've got the hire of the minibus, you've got the petrol costs, or everybody gets in a train. Then we've got to hire a couple of houses to put everybody up, like Airbnbs or whatever, which probably work out better than a hotel.
Yeah.
But you know, that's a big chunk of change as well. So you're looking at 30K roughly, I think, to get it on again. And people don't realize how all these things add up, and it gets quite expensive, you know.
Yeah. Is there a sort of more of a bare bones version you could roll out just so the content's out there? Well, like how
I mean, we could,
spread the word?
you know, we could put it on YouTube, but it's very specific to theatre. This piece, it's not designed for people to watch it on the telly, and I really think it needs to be in the theatre. It's the same with the Magnificent Seven play that I wrote, which we'll come on to in a second. But you know, some things are deliberately written for stage, or adapted for stage, and so we've got puppets in it and stuff like that, and it is a very emotive piece, and the actors need to be very close to the audience. They need to connect with the audience. You'd never put this play on in the Olivier, say in the National, which is from an actor's point of view, that's a nightmare space. So you really need to we know what worked and what didn't work in it. We need to roll it out again in its present form, and you know, put it on again so more people can see it around the country. So I think, although we will apply for funding, that's potluck. And you know, there's only so much money in the pot, and thousands of people will be applying, so we'll see what happens. But then the other thing is, you know, private donation or angel investor or that kind of thing. That's what we're hoping for. But you and I have both been in funding situations for other projects that are far more commercial than this one. Finding those people is notoriously difficult, and also people don't want to part with their savings these days. We live in really difficult times, don't we?
We do.
You know,
and again,
people don't have
you're adding to the work that you've got to do. You know, you're talking about the GoFundMe page, you know, ideally having sort of 3 people behind it who work, you know, sort of every day for at least a few hours.
yeah
That's another thing that you'd have to go out and find that person or persons.
Yeah, I mean, the plan wasn't to do a crowdfunding campaign as such. It was really just the GoFundMe was really just, okay, you know, some people have said they wanted to donate. Here's how you can donate. And the amount of money there we've had is so minuscule. That's going to go towards kind of ongoing costs of traveling to see venues and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We need a big chunk of change to say, yes, okay, we can definitely do that theatre or this theatre. And you know, John O'Sullivan's made an interesting comment in the chat. Problem is with corporate takeover, it's not yours anymore. I mean, so I wouldn't give this play over to somebody else to do. You know, it went through quite a detailed organic process of, okay, what works, what doesn't. That's what this whole first run of it was about. It's in really good shape now. We need to, when we put it on again, I want the strongest cast possible. We had quite a bit of chopping and changing with our actors. We had 2 people that were supposed to be in the show that at the last minute were not available. Other people had to come in and read in for them. In one case, the person was on stage with a script because it was so last minute. And then I had to cover another role with a script in hand myself. And I was having such good fun with it. I slammed the script shut at one point on stage, and I just went in character. I'm so sorry, ladies. I've got carried away. I seem to have closed my book. Let me just find out where I was. Oh, yes. And I sort of then carried on. Stayed in character was all you could do, wasn't it? You know,
Yeah.
and they were laughing along with this, which was quite hilarious. But so yeah, if we do another live performance next year, it will be the post office play, and hopefully, you know, we'll have some money, because can't ask people to do it for expenses only. Again,
no.
It's just not, and we kept the time commitment very small. But if we're going to tour 4 or 5 venues, and it won't be the same cast all the time, there'll be a pool of actors. We had some people that were double cast last time.
Mm.
And, if we're going up north, and then the cast that are based in Birmingham will kind of go to them first, because it's closer to them. And if we're down on the south coast, we'll go to the London cast first. And whichever mix I think is going to work best.
Well, it's I mean, that's also the cost, isn't it? I mean, that's why it's less than ideal. I'm sure there would be people that would agree to do it, the odd person at free.
I mean, well, it was different before because we were doing it in London and everyone was based in London. We were doing it in Birmingham, and apart from me and Kenny, most of the people were based up there. They had a base there, so they could perform in Birmingham.
Yeah, but when it's Scotland, it's different.
That's a different
kettle of fish.
Indeed. So I mean, short of all of us living inside some sort of giant converted haggis, I don't know how we're going to fund that, But Billy George, who helped us out with a few things who's from Dunfermline. Did I say that right, Bill? I think I did. That's why I went up to Dunfermline, and it's the Carnegie Theatre there that are interested in us, and it's a proper big old school theatre, with a upper balcony and all of that. But it's not too big for the play, but we would have to stage a few things slightly differently. But I think it'd be a lot of fun to do this show there. And there was a lot of postmasters that were impacted by the scandal in Scotland. So it would be good. It'd be good to get it on there.
Did you have any press reach out to you sort of on hearing that this was what you were doing? Because
no, we reached out to a lot of press. We had a little bit of engagement, but almost no articles at all.
Because this must be like the first thing that's come out. Like there haven't been any documentaries or sort of dramatizations, have there?
Well, Panorama did a documentary. ITV have got a dramatization that starts filming next year. I think it's a 4-part, 1 hour.
Right.
I met the producers of it at the book launch for Nick Wallace's book, and I was trying to put Phil Davis's name in the ring to play Alan Bates, who's one of the main protagonists in the story.
Yeah.
And it'd be great if Phil Davis could. No, they went, we might need somebody more well known. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like up there with Bob Hoskins and everyone else, man.
He's just a terrific actor.
Yeah, that too. Just
put him in anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to see him in. Like, I think the first thing I saw him in, because he's always one of those people that he's a face. You don't actually you can't put a name to the face, but you recognize him like instantly when he's in something.
And funnily enough, he was in a film called Face.
Was he?
Yeah, directed by Antonia Bird.
Play a face,
playing a villain with Ray Winston.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the first thing I saw him in was actually something you really like as well, which you've mentioned before, which was it was just sort of like he played a cop, and it was like a gritty
Code of Silence, Wall of Silence.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
It's brilliant.
He's really good in that. The whole film's on YouTube. So anybody who wants to watch it, if you like your true crime, true stories, films, Wall of Silence starring Phil Davis about the true murder of Jamie Robe, really tragic story, is on YouTube. I'll see if I can find the link and we can drop it in the chat. We better talk about the Magnificent Seven next, as that's we've got the poster up for it and we haven't talked about it yet. So the full movie of Wall of Silence, which there's a whole load of people in it that I know. Actually, there's a a load of ex-Anna Share actors and so on. Here you go. That's it there. Starring Jimmy Nesbitt.
Yeah.
He's really, really, really good.
He's the dad, right?
He is the dad in it. Phil Davis is the cop. He's really, really good. In it. He's fantastic. There's another friend of mine in it, Tony Simpson, who's really good. And yeah, I mean, it's just a great. It's a tragic, awful story. You know, about a random act of violence that, you know, profoundly ripped apart several people's lives and forever. Prosecuting the people that did it was a real challenge, but 3 of the 5 of them went to prison ultimately. So I don't want to say too much more. But yeah, let's talk about 7 Magnificent Egos.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, Magnificent 7 is usually a film that's on Christmas Day or Boxing Day on one of the channels, right?
It is with the classic score. You know.
So, like, why did you write this play? Were you a fan of the film?
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, you know, of course, I saw it probably on Christmas or Boxing Day. I probably saw it in the when I was a young kid, probably in the mid to late 70s, I would imagine, first time I saw it. And it's one of those films that sticks in your mind for several reasons. One of them is the aforementioned score. But the other reason is it's got all of the 6 of the 7 actors all became big stars in their own right. And when they were brought together to be in this particular film, several of them were on the verge of becoming big. So it's one of the first feature film roles, if not the first. I think it might be the second, for Steve McQueen.
Yeah,
who of course is even now is an iconic Hollywood figure, and most people do know the name when you say him. Of course, his son Chad McQueen was one of the Cobra Kai in the original Karate Kid film, and he's the only speaking Cobra Kai actor not to have come back for the Cobra Kai TV series. And they did try to get him, and I mean, he stopped acting quite a long time ago, and it's a real shame because I saw him in about 3 or 4 things, and you know what? He's a pretty good actor.
yeah.
If I get a picture of him in Cobra Kai, so I can show you. Well, not Cobra Kai, the original Karate Kid, because he played a character called Dutch, and he's got loads of pent up aggression, and they sort of quite plausibly say, "Oh yeah, he's in prison. That's why he doesn't appear in the Cobra Kai series." You know. And you can imagine his character being in prison quite easily. It's not too much of a stretch.
Yeah. Or maybe he sorted himself out and emigrated, or went.
Well, I mean, I think if they're going to do a couple more, I think they're doing one more season to wrap it up. I think he should come back. It'd be great if he did. That's Chad McQueen in Cobra Kai. We're segueing off a little bit here, but the reason that I mentioned him, Steve McQueen and Yul Brynner. Yul Brynner was already a massive star, and originally the project was going to be a project for Yul Brynner and the guy who played Zorba the Greek, Anthony Quinn.
Oh God, yeah.
Anthony Quinn, who was in the Guns and Navarone. And Anthony Quinn actually took the idea to Brynner, and they were going to cut a deal. And but then Anthony Quinn went behind, having done that, went behind Yul Brynner's back to try and make his own deal with this production company that Brynner had mentioned, and kind of sidestep him. Although you still keep him in the project, but kind of sidestep him as a producer. We know all about that sort of thing happening, Alex, don't we? Anyway, and the more I found out about kind of the shenanigans that went on behind trying to get the film made, the more interesting I thought it would be to do. And it was also, there was a very young Robert Vaughn in the movie, who also went on to be in another remake of The Seven Samurai, because the film is a remake of The Seven Samurai. He was in Battle Beyond the Stars, which is a low-budget Roger Corman sci-fi movie that was made in 1980, I think 79, 80.
We both love the soundtrack as well.
One of James Horner's first soundtracks, if not the first, I think, that he did. I can hear it straight away in my head. And then you've got Jimmy Coburn in there as well. Horst Schultz, who was a German actor who went on to have quite a sort of, he had a pretty decent career, but he had quite a turbulent personal life for various reasons. And, you know, so there's quite a big story with him. And he was one of the youngest cast members at the time. The film was made in 1960. Now, here's what's really interesting. The producer of the film, he's done loads of big movies. Let me just get his IMDb up so I can talk about it with accuracy rather than trying to rely on my absolutely atrocious and poor memory.
You're good with names, though.
Well,
who was?
I'm straight. It's Walter Mirisch, I think is. Yeah. So
right.
Walter Mirisch is the Mirisch brothers produced it. Now, last time I checked, Walter Mirisch was still alive, and I was thinking, God, wouldn't it be great to get him on for an interview on this channel? You know, because Lou Morheim, Walter Mirisch produced it. John Sturges, who also directed it, also directed The Great Escape. And the reason he agreed to direct The Magnificent Seven was that Mirisch agreed to produce The Great Escape for him after this. And several of the actors that were in The Magnificent Seven were also in The Great Escape. Now Walter Mirisch was born, get this, in 1921. Right? 1921 he was born.
Yeah.
So you do the maths on that. How old is he? He's nearly 100, isn't he?
He's got to be 102 or something, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still alive.
Wow.
He is still alive. So and it's funny because his name, you know, now once I lodged his name in my head, and you look at, you keep an eye out for somebody's name when you know, once you're kind of a fan of their work, you're interested to see what other things he did. So I'm just gonna, he did a lot of movies called Bomber and the Hidden City, Bomber and the Lion Hunters, Bomber on Panther Island, Bomber the Jungle Boy. So I'm guessing that's a kind of a Tarzan, Bomber and the African Treasure. So quite a lot of Bomber and the Jungle Girl, Bomber and the Safari Drums. I've never seen any of these Bomber movies. But okay, so he was an executive producer on the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers. He did quite a lot of westerns, including Gunfight at Dodge City in '59, The Horse Soldiers, which is a very well-known film, Cast a Long Shadow, which is a big action movie, and then he did The Magnificent Seven. Then he went on to also executive produce West Side Story, Great Escape, Pink Panther, 633 Squadron, A Shot in the Dark, which is another Pink Panther movie, In the Heat of the Night, which was a really great film, The Party with Peter Sellers, which is a film that some would say is quite on PC if you watch it now. Thomas Crown Affair, Fiddler on the Roof, Mr. Majestic, Battle of Midway, Prisoner of Zenda, Desperado, and then sort of, you know, he kind of, his career petered out in the mid to late 80s, and then he did a few things, like he executive produced the Magnificent television series that run for 10 episodes in the late 90s.
Right.
He executive produced the Pink Panther TV series, which was the animated cartoons that they used to do with the detective.
Remember?
Yeah, you remember those?
Yeah.
And it's the Pink Panther show, and yeah, and the big long car arrived, didn't it? That kind of yeah, and he got out. And then he was also credited as an exec producer on the Magnificent Seven, the remake, which I wasn't a big fan of that.
And that was with Chris Pratt and Denzel Washington. Right?
Denzel Washington, yeah. So I mean, going back to the original 1960, you know, one of the reasons I wanted to do, I thought it would be very interesting, is because when you read up about all the things that went on behind the scenes, there was quite a lot of drama. Like McQueen, it was one of McQueen's first big roles, and Yul Brynner was very much like, I'm the star of this movie. And McQueen was constantly trying to upstage him. So if you look in every scene that every shot that McQueen is in with Brynner, McQueen is always doing something to steal the scene. He's normally fanning his hat like this. But he's always doing something. He adds all these little details into his character because he's not got that much dialogue in the film. I think he's only got like about 11 lines, and there's all 7 of them. And
so would Brenner demand to see the dailies or something, or
oh yeah, I mean Brynner was a producer on it as well.
Yeah,
but he used to say to McQueen, if you keep trying to upstage me in my scenes, all I've got to do to get people to take their eyes off you is take my hat off. Because of course he had his, you know, classic bald head. Now a lot of people forget that New York stage actor Eli Wallach played the head of the villains, and there's a really nice story about them. All the Mexican actors that kind of became his men. Well, he hung out with them the whole time, and they taught him how to ride a horse. They taught him his accent. He went to dinner with them all the time. It's like a really nice story. So in the play, you know, because everybody in the play, I think the cast is 8 actors. It's 1 woman who plays all the female roles, including the love interest in the film, who was Rosa Monteros, the actress who was the last of the lead actors to die. That's Brad Dexter. I'll come on to him in a second. And then the other 7 actors play all 7 of the Magnificent Seven, but they also play Walter Mirisch. They play all 3 of the script writers. They play all the extras. They play Eli Wallach's character. They play the head of the Mexican film censor, etc., etc., etc. It's a 2-act play. Each act is about 45 to 50 minutes. I really cut it down. I was trying to get it into a 1-act sort of 70-minute play, but that just did not work. Now, this is Brad Dexter. So when you get one of the most common pub movie questions, you know, you have a pub quiz, name the 7 actors from the Magnificent Seven. The one that people can never remember is Brad Dexter. And Brad was the oldest of the 7 Magnificent Seven actors, and he knew that his career was on the way out. So the story goes that he was constantly trying to get more lines. He was constantly trying to be in more scenes or more shots because he thought, this is my last chance to shine on the silver screen. And so what I thought would be great is to have that actor also play the director of the film, John Sturges, and John Sturges is constantly trying to avoid him. So this actor who's playing Brad Dexter was sort of like, has anyone seen John? And no, we haven't seen him. I wanted to have a meeting with him, and he'll go off stage, and then he'll literally put a different hat on, come back out, do a different voice, and go, Brad's not around, is he? I'm trying to avoid him, you know. And that's like an ongoing joke in the show, that actor plays both parts, but they never exist in the same space in the performance, which is a goldmine of comedy. So this is a play. This play would not work online, by the way. We are doing an online show, and I will talk about that in a bit. Thanks to our RRTNZ. Yeah, well, this is a production that the Outcasts. Well, it's one that I wrote before the Outcasts was even formed, but it's something I'd like to do on stage in the future. John's asked, is this current? So, I mean, it's not particularly. It's just a play that I think would be fun. It also needs to happen fairly soon because the people that remember this movie are people of kind of mine and maybe to a lesser degree your generation, because you're a lot younger than me. But the millennials, most of them won't have even seen it. Now, that doesn't mean that if you came to see the play and you didn't know who these iconic actors are, Charles Bronson, of course, another big star that was in the movie, and he was quite young at the time, or youngish. That doesn't mean that you wouldn't get the jokes, because one of the opening lines in the play from Robert Vaughan's character, who also narrates the show, is he said that this was this idea for this movie was the genius of two big actors, Yul Brynner and Anthony Quinn. All you need to know about them is that they are the Brad Pitts and Leonardo DiCaprios of their day in Hollywood. So as soon as you plant that seed in the younger audience's mind, you're telling them, you're telling them straight away what they're going to see in the show. This is one of the new subscribers we have, The Sound of One Man Laughing. He was a Critical Drinker subscriber. He's now also subscribed to my channel. Can't tell you what that means, mate. Thank you so much. Thank you for the comment, mate. You can come back and watch the stream later, so you can catch up with it later. Yeah. So I think obviously it will be. It's a show that will work a lot better for people that have seen the film, but that's by no means essential. For people to have seen it, because even that people have seen the film, they won't know about all the things that went on behind the scenes. I did a lot of research on it, and obviously I've had to guess at what a lot of the conversations would have been about, and there's lots of stipulations before the show begins about, there's 3 versions of this story: my version of it, their version, and the truth. And so you plant the seed again with the audience, and for legal reasons, that some of what you see may or may not have happened.
As long as you've got the motive of each of the.
Well, I think so. I mean, and the producers who made the film, Walter Mirish's character is actually a pretty big role, and the actor who plays Robert Vaughn also plays Walter Mirish. But the most challenging thing for the actors with this show is that I want them to play. So they're all playing one of the Magnificent Seven, apart from the woman who's playing Rosa Montero. So I want to get her up. She's such a glamorous, gorgeous looking woman. I remember when I saw Magnificent Seven as a kid, when she came on screen, I was like, oh, I feel all queasy and strange. What's happening to me? Not knowing that was the first yearnings of a young boy crush.
I thought that was Helen Mirren, or was that later?
Helen Mirren. I had a crush on Helen Mirren in my teens.
Right.
So I understood what that meant. I understood what that meant by then. Let me find her. Well, she passed away. If I'd been doing the channel when she was still alive, I definitely, she passed away in 2018. And she was the last of the actors. She did a lot of Mexican films. She didn't really, her career didn't really break in Hollywood or whatever, because I think her English was pretty limited. There's this dreadful colorized picture of her, but I'll pop it up. But she was stunning, absolutely stunningly beautiful.
Yeah.
And of course, John Sturges, the director, had an affair with her. So we cover that in the play. But the thing I was going to say was the challenge for the actors is, so the actor that's playing Robert Vaughn is also playing 2 or 3 other parts, but he has to play the other parts as if Robert Vaughn, the actor, is playing those other roles. So in other words, in the play, he's always Robert Vaughn. Do you follow me?
Yeah.
And we had to set that up in the play quite early on, literally by him telling the audience that. So he would introduce himself and say, by the way, this evening, you're also going to see me play this role, and this role. And then somebody else says that again further down the line, and says, you got the picture by now, right? So I don't pander to the audience too much. But yeah, I mean, and she was the love interest of Horst Schultz, although I don't think they actually kiss in the movie. And it's quite funny because at one point he complained that Horst Schultz complained that they didn't have any chemistry. She wasn't giving him anything. And Sturgis was saying, don't worry, I'll work on that with her. But that's because she was having an affair with Sturgis.
Yeah.
And so her romantic focus was not on Schultz. And Schultz also, you know, his sexuality was, he was bisexual, which of course back then in those times was, you know, that was a secret. So we've played on that with him a little bit. He was quite a camp actor. You can see that in some of his performances, but he was a cracking actor though. He was really good.
I mean, that's the two things that I thought about there. One was, I mean, being as it's you and you've got this sort of encyclopedic knowledge of people who worked on these sort of famous films, lots of independent films as well. You sort of seem to remember various people, key people, usually from the crew as well, not just the actors by name. Like, and when you were saying, you know, if that woman was still alive, then you give it a shot. You'd reach out to an agent or try and get in touch with or something. I'm sure there are people who are alive that are lesser known but have these incredible stories that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I reached out to Paul Copley actually, who who did a read through of a script with me once, and he was in Bridge Too Far and he was in Zulu Dawn, to name a couple of things that he's done, and he played Anthony Hopkins like adjutant. You know, he's the one that sort of Anthony Hopkins says, right, off you go, Wicks, try and get back to the rest of the boys. What about you, sir? Well, we just didn't make it this time, did we? You know, and it's actually quite a sad scene. And he's not really a guy who does a lot of, as an actor, he's not really a guy that likes to do a lot of press. I haven't seen him be interviewed before. I can't remember seeing him being interviewed. And so he told me that straight off the bat, it wasn't really his thing. And I did say to him, look, you've been on some big epic movies, and when you're gone, all the stories about the production and stuff, and I'm not looking for gossip here. I just want to, like Peter McDonald, who was a second unit director on Zulu Dawn, told me the biggest problem that they had with all their 3,000 Zulu extras was a whole load of them were wearing bright green trainers, because they'd all decided to go out and buy new trainers with the money they were getting paid. And, they were all wearing these bright green trainers. So you'll see a lot of shots in the film where you can't see the Zulu's feet. But then they had to get them to take their shoes off and stuff like that. But yeah, I said to Paul, you're going to have stories like that. But he in the end, he politely declined, which much to my regret. But you're right. There's actors still living, especially supporting character actors, some of whom have quit the business, who, have been in some great productions or played some great parts. And I just love to talk to them about, what were the challenges of that. People want to hear these stories. They're interesting.
Of course. I mean, like even people like Phil Davis, right? He's a well-known face, but not necessarily a household name. People like Alan, who, I didn't know by name, but you just see the breadth and sort of the body of work he produced when he was alive through his lifetime. Incredible.
Alan. You're talking about Alan Tompkins.
Tompkins, who's not an actor, but I mean,
art director, For those people watching, Alan Tompkins was art director on Bridge Too Far, Empire Strikes Back. Some films you may have heard of: Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan,
as well.
Dunlop Green Flash. It may well have been Dunlop Green Flash. That would have been the right time for those to have popped up.
Yeah, but it's like you also, because these sort of events and these people, even they go down in they're like myths, right? They go down in legend, like sort of folklore. You sort of want to compare notes. I've read a biography where somebody like spills the beans on this particular person. He was like this on this film. Then you sort of want to ask somebody else that maybe has a completely different opinion and get another side of the story. So,
sure,
that's not going to happen unless somebody interviews those people.
Well, one actor that I asked, and he hasn't said no yet, but one actor that I asked, would you come on the channel? Is this the right screen? No, sorry, hold on. I've got too many windows open here. Let me get rid of that. Let's get rid of this. Stop. There we go. Okay. One was an actor called Kevin Bresnahan, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Apologies, Kevin, if I'm not. And he was on. Do you remember a movie called Alive with Ethan Hawke, based on the true story of the plane crash in the Andes?
Is that Kurt Russell? Wow.
No. It's a young Ethan Hawke.
I remember
plane crash. You've got the football team. They're on their way back from rugby match. They're on the way back to Chile, and they crash in the mountains. A whole load of them are killed in the crash. A whole load of them survive, but they're stuck in the middle of nowhere on a mountain peak in a kind of valley full of snow, surrounded by mountains.
Yeah.
And in the end, two of them walk out to get help.
They eat the dead as well.
That's right, and it's true story. So this is Kevin Bresnahan. Now he mainly works as a sports commentator now, but I think Alive's an amazing film. I really think it's fantastic, and it feels very authentic. And they did film in a very remote location with real snow. And several of the survivors of the plane crash came to see the set. They visited the set. Roberto Canessa and people like this. And then Kevin Bresnahan played the character he played. It sort of became known as the radio guy because he once attempted to build a radio with his cousin. So everybody in the plane crash is like, right, your job's to fix the radio. You know about radios. He's like, I don't know anything about radios. And at one point, they drag him up to the tail section, which is where the batteries are, which they need to reconnect to the radio in order to get the radio to transmit. And it's a mission impossible. They're never going to be able to fix the radio. But he plays a great character in the film. I always really remembered him. And I'd love to get him on the show. So I found him on Twitter. I tweeted a comment and said, hey, could you get in touch with me? And he followed me, and I dropped him a message and I said, look, I'd really like to interview you, blah, 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 blah. I haven't had a reply yet. And I would have thought if he was completely disinterested, he would have then unfollowed me, but he hasn't. So maybe he will come back to me. Question, Lance, have you ever worked with Richie Costa? He's been in so many great films and he's killing it right now on Tulsa King. By the way, have you watched Tulsa King with Sylvester Stallone?
Not seen it.
It's a good series, and Stallone it's perfect for Stallone. It's good fun.
Did he have any sort of producing in it?
Yeah, he plays a con man, not a con man, an ex-con who's released from prison. He's part of the Italian mafia. There's a bit of a feud between him and another underboss. So in order to keep things peaceful, they relocate him out of town. John O'Sullivan, funnily enough, has just mentioned Dead Man's Shoes. Now, that's directed by a friend of mine, Shane Meadows. And Shane and I started directing. We both lived in Nottingham. There was a bit of an indie buzz film scene then. And we both lived in Nottingham at the same time. We're borrowing each other's cameras and things. And I was there when he made Meantime, which was his first little film, and then he did 24/7 with Bob Hoskins, and after that, his career took off. Great, really nice guy, and someone who proper salt of the earth, came from nothing, became a filmmaker, and is very much a kind of Ken Loach of his generation. And he's gone on to do This Is England. As soon as he started doing stuff for Channel 4, where they had like 7 producers telling him what to do, and those I think he did 2 films like that, and he said both of them were a nightmare. And actually Dead Man's Shoes was him going back to his indie roots and making something where 20 people weren't telling him what to do. Let me look up this guy, Richie Costa. Let's see who he is, see if I recognize. I think he's gonna be one of these actors that's like in lots of him. Oh, he's fucking great. Love this guy. And yeah, he's been in a load of stuff. Let me get his picture up. So this is Richie Costa. And this is him in Tulsa King. He often plays villains, psychopaths, because he's just got this great face. But I have seen him do other roles as well. Yes, I would love to interview him. You know, getting people to come on a little YouTube channel for interviews is not an easy shout if you don't have a personal connection. I'll tell you who else I reached out to recently. An Oriental actress who was in a film favorite of mine as a child, and it was called Paper Tiger. And she played a terrorist in that. And she did a couple of other films. Now, Paper Tiger was directed by Ken Anakin. Ken Anakin, it was with David Niven. He also directed several of the scenes in The Longest Day, Those Magnificent Men in Their Flying Machines, Monte Carlo or Bust, the Genghis Khan movie, Fifth Musketeer, Battle of the Bulge, not such a great credit. Swiss Family Robinson, which was a big Disney movie back in the day. Anyway, so Paper Tiger was a great little film with David Niven as a teacher who gets employed by this family in the Philippines to teach their son, and he's telling him about all these stories when he served in the war and stuff like this, and these stories aren't true, hence the title Paper Tiger. But the kid looks up to him and thinks he's a massive hero. So when they get kidnapped, the kid thinks, well, you know, you're this great ex-special forces commando guy. You'll be able to get us out of these situations, won't you, Mr. Bradbury? Calls him Mr. Bradbury. And this lady, Irene Sue, was one of the main villains in the piece. And she's had a really interesting career, because she's been around for a long time. She was in the Green Berets with John Wayne. And you see, this is exactly the sort of person you were talking about when you were saying, find other people and reach out to them. So I wrote to her and she agreed to do an interview. And she said November, but then I haven't been able to pin her down. So maybe she will, maybe she won't. I hope so, because again, you know, this is an actress who, she was in Airport in 1975, but then she did things like Star Trek Voyager. She had a main part in, you know, an Elvis Presley movie, wow. Paradise Hawaiian Style. She was the main love interest. I mean, God, and what a beautiful woman. You know, and she looks fantastic now as well. It would be great to get her on the channel if we can. These, you know, I've written to several people like this. I am more interested in talking to people that you might not immediately recognize, but they've been in an industry for a long time. They're jobbing people, they're character actors, or they're DOPs, or they're sound guys, or whatever. You know, these people that have been in the industry, work for a long time, and have got stories about how it's changed. And
sure, and they've probably got a less of a guard up, right, as well, because they're not sort of, you know, instantly recognizable. They're not mobbed on the street. They're not sort of so they've probably got their guard down, and they would probably open up quite, you know, probably quite a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope so. I mean, I would love to. There's a couple of big names that I did a blog about. In fact, let's go and have a look at it. I did a blog about my top 10 favorite character actors, which is on my website for my novel series, Diamonds in the Sky.
Let me try and get.
Here we go.
Well, David Niven's got to be in there, right?
No, because David Niven was a leading man.
Right.
Of his day, he was a leading man. He kind of had a character actor look, but he wasn't what you would call a character actor. They're the people who play the scientists, the evil villains, the quirky supporting roles more than anything. Now, some actors do comfortably bridge this. They have one foot in each, and certainly a few of the people on this list qualify. But this is my blog on the Diamonds in the Sky. It's Diamonds in the Sky bookseries.com for anybody who wants to have a look. And this is a blog I did. So Donald Logue, of course, who you know is a friend of mine. And before we became friends, and he's attached to several of my scripts very generously, I followed his career. I followed it from day one since he was in a film called And the Band Played On, which is a fantastic movie, all-star cast, had a little role. And I looked for him in other things after that. And he's just been in so many things. CCH Pounder, who, of course, does the voice of Moat in Avatar. But I followed her career from the days when she was in ER. And I think this still is from her playing one of the doctors in ER. She's an amazing actress. Again, I think you could put, she's a character actor, but she's another one who could easily be the lead in a film. She could play the leading role depending on what the role is. Tim Thomerson is an unusual one. So he is a B-movie actor. He was in a lot of films of Albert Poons, who my director friend who just passed away. He did a series of movies called Trancers, which were kind of a low-end Blade Runner rip-off.
Right.
Where he played Jack Death.
Wasn't it Cyborg, was he?
I don't think he was in Cyborg. If he was, it was a cameo role. He was in Uncommon Valor, which is one of my favorite Vietnam, kind of rescuing guys from Vietnam films. But he's just a great actor. He's such fun to watch. He was in a great film called Volunteers with Tom Hanks and John Candy that almost no one's seen. Kim Coates is another great character actor who's been in absolutely everything from Black Hawk Down to Waterworld, Open Range, main character in all of the seasons of Sons of Anarchy. Again, he's another person I've spoken with personally. I'd love to get him to do I'd love to do an interview with him on the channel. Whether he would agree or not, I don't know. But Donald Logue has said he will when he's got the time. But he's a very, very, very busy man. So Peter Sarsgaard is is one of those actors he's just fucking phenomenal. When you put him on screen, you can't take your eyes off him. And he's different in absolutely everything he's in. He's completely different. Sometimes you don't he's the one that you're watching him for a bit and you go, oh, it's that guy, and you don't recognize him because he's changed his persona so much that he's completely different. He again also could quite probably lead a film. He's not big box office in terms of names, but he's just a phenomenal actor. Margot Martindale's an actress that a lot of people won't know her necessarily. But she did a great role in this film called The Hollers, which was the directing debut of John Krasinski, who went on to do that film where all the people are really quiet. They've got to be quiet. The monster. Yeah. What was that called again?
Is it The Quiet Place or something?
Yeah, The Quiet Place. He directed The Quiet Place. But before he did that, he did The Hollers. And she played a great mum who was dying of cancer. But she's been in The Rocketeer, Days of Thunder, Dexter. Just a really good, solid character actress. And then I wanted to give a shout out to somebody younger So Richard Cabral is a really young Latino actor who was involved in gangs and stuff like that, and he subsequently, I think somebody enrolled him in an acting class, where he got in an acting workshop, something like that, and he got a part in the spin-off series from Sons of Anarchy about the Latino people, and he's now Johnny Coco Cruz Mayans MC. He's now one of the main characters in that, and he's another actor. You put him on screen, he's got such an unusual face, you can't take your eyes off him, and he doesn't need to do very much. He's quite new. He's in 10 years' time, he's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
When he's got a bit more meat under his belt, but he's already really good. And I thought it would be great to give him a shout out, like one of the new kids on the block. Now, this is what made me think of this list. So Albert Brooks is a guy who's written, produced, directed, and starred in a whole slate of his own films. Usually playing he kind of does Woody Allen-ish type characters, sort of insecure men attempting romantic relationships and that kind of thing. I would love to interview him. He did a great film, Broadcast News, with Holly Hunter, probably her finest performance of her career. William Hurt was in that, who just passed away, of course, last year, I think, or this year. And Albert Brooks is 73 now. But he's somebody he's a character actor and a great character actor, but he's also been a leading man. And how he got to be a leading man was by producing, directing, and writing his own stuff and casting himself in it. I don't think many other people would have given him the leading man shot.
Yeah.
I normally always have an Albert Brooks clip at my movie quizzes, so that's why you might recognize him. Tina Lifford is relatively new. She first kind of debuted in New Jack City, which is a great film, but she's a really solid character in a series called Queen Sugar. And that was one of the series I binged in lockdown, like 5 seasons of it. And her character is great in that. And she's been in a lot of other stuff, South Central, Parenthood. And she's also been in things like Grand Canyon and Deep Space Nine. But yeah, she's just fantastic as Queen Sugar. And then finally, we got John C. Reilly. You must know John C. Reilly, right?
Of course, yeah.
Absolutely love this guy. I mean, he is definitely like one of the best character actors working today. He has to do so little now. He does a lot of comedy, but if you watch Casualties of War, which is the true story of the American platoon that went out on it was a recon team, 4 or 5 man recon team. They went out on a recon mission. They stole a young girl from a village, raped and murdered her, basically. And then, one of the guys that was in the unit, the guy who wouldn't actually take part, eventually he spilled his guts out to a guy in a bar who was a captain, and that guy was the guy who got the thing investigated.
Right.
And,
wow.
Yeah, damn. The real story behind that is pretty fucking heavy. He played one of the guys in the platoon. That was one of the first things I saw him in. But he's been in everything. I mean, he plays a great role in Boogie Nights. Do you remember him in Boogie Nights?
I do. And I've forgotten actually that, because you think of him, you think of Step Brothers or something like that he's been in. You think comic roles. I've forgotten that he was a sort of dramatic actor as well.
Yeah, because he doesn't get to do a lot of straight stuff now.
No.
And I mean, another of his best performances is Magnolia, where he plays a policeman with self-confidence issues. Do you remember that role?
I can't remember a minute, but I remember the film. Yeah.
He's the policeman who loses his gun. He loses his gun, and this kid takes it from him. And then he has this great scene. I've written about it here. I just love his performance in the film and his scenes with Melora Walters. Now, Melora Walters is another fantastic character actor. I can only fit 10 people on this list. These are 10 Americans, by the way. So, because when Jason Fleming looked at this. He said, "Oi, why am I not on there?" And I said, "This is Americans. I'm going to do a British one. My top 10 favorite British character actors." Yeah, I mean, Nerdly UK, thanks for popping in, buddy, has said he was sensational in Magnolia. There's a great scene where he kind of goes on this date with Laura Walters, and it's so completely innocent, and she's a victim of abuse. He's really uncertain. But he wants to kind of protect her, you can tell. And the moment that leads up to them actually kissing, it's just fucking brilliant. It's so beautiful. So I feel like I need to watch that film again now.
Yeah. All I remember is Tom Cruise's performance in
Tom Cruise's finest performance ever, I reckon.
Yeah, well, it was crazy. It was nuts.
I definitely one of Cruise's best ever performances. And by the way, those people that are watching, this is the website for my book, and this is the book series. So if there's Jason Fleming holding a copy. This is the second book in the series. The third one should have been out this year, but I had a very difficult year, and my headspace wasn't in writing a novel. So I did carry on being creative, but I couldn't get the third Diamonds book out. It will come probably towards Christmas of 2023. I'm hoping. I don't want to rush it.
How many have you got left to write? Like how?
Well, the original plan was for there to be 6, and I don't know that'll be enough. It might go more.
Right. So you're gonna.
I know the end scene. I know how it ends, but I don't want to rush to get there.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things to explore, right? You've set up these complex characters and it's a world. Yeah. You've built a world, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, for those people watching that don't know what it's about 200 alien ships that arrive on the Earth. And actually, if you go on the website, you can read all about it. These are the ships that come. That's Faith. I'm trying to remember this actress's name, Faith somebody. We did a little short film, which is on YouTube. I just put Diamonds in the Sky, Martin. One of them will come up, and then this is another one. There were 2, and that's one of the spaceships. And they drill down into the Earth, and people can't get into them, and nothing comes out. So at first, everyone thinks it's an invasion. Then people don't understand what's happening, and it's like a Game of Thrones book. So these are all the different characters. You can read about it all on the website. In fact, I'll stick let me chuck the address in the chat. That'd be sensible, wouldn't it? So people like Nerdly can look it up in their own time. Boom, there we go. And and it's you follow these very dysfunctional characters from all around the world. These are the locations of where the ships have landed that are discussed in the first book. There's more locations than this because some have landed in the sea. There's 200 of them all over the world. And you see through the eyes of these 8 quite dysfunctional characters from all around the world. That's
what made you chose those like specific pinpoints on the map?
Well, these ones get mentioned in the story. So Jake Francis, who did this map for me, I listed all the ones that get mentioned in the first book, and he just put them on there. But I wanted obviously a story set in England. I wanted a story set in America. So there was does one land in Berwick upon Tweed? No, I can tell you exactly where the one in the UK lands in. It's just to the west of Aberdeen. And I know all the roads around the west of Aberdeen really well because I've gone through them all on Google Earth. And it lands in a place out of the city, and that's the one that lands in the UK. So it lands in Scotland. There's one that lands just off the coast of Ireland, near Northern Ireland, and then there's a couple that land in France. One just north of Paris.
Cool. It's cool. It's good graphic.
So does one land in Berwick upon Tweed? No. Funnily enough, Nerdly, I did look at Berwick upon Tweed just recently because I took a train ride down from Scotland. It's beautiful. You go along the coast. When I came back from Edinburgh, I love that train line. So that's where they land. One of the stories is set in Africa, and I deliberately found the most remote city that I could find in Africa, not city, sorry, town. And if we just go on the map here, I'm going to find it for you, right? So it's set in Chad, and Chad has a really big desert with very remote towns, and I wanted to set that part of the storyline in the most remote town I could find, and that was Fada, right? Now, this has a population of 40,000, and when you zoom in on it, okay, you would never think that. And it's got a bit of an oasis, and apparently there's 40,000 people living here. Now, there's an airstrip just outside the town, which I spotted as well, and that all got incorporated into the story. Trying to see it now. But this place is completely remote. Now, you see the road? That's not a road, okay? That's not a road. That's not a tarmac road. That's it's a track.
Right.
It's a track. You can't you can't get out there. Well, by the way, Nerdly, one of the things that makes the book interesting is you don't know why the ships are there. And you're trying. There's people that in the story that are trying to find out, and there's other people in the story that are just trying to go about their daily lives. So you can see when you zoom in, these are all like little compounds. So this, for example, here, that one that's either a big family or that might belong to the military, because there's a garrison there. So the ship that lands in Chad, which is where one of the main storylines takes place, it lands right here in this bit. Oh, there's the airport. See that strip? Look.
Yeah.
That's the runway. There's no buildings, man. There's like this little hut. Look.
Jeez, yeah.
That's it. So that airport becomes this massive military hub. But most of the buildings are all centered around this oasis. So this building here is the school where my characters attend. They go to that school. And there's a big storyline about these children being sex trafficked, which is all based on real stuff. All of the characters in Diamonds in the Sky are based on real people. All of the non-sci-fi elements are all based on things that really happened. And they're a group of orphans, basically. And the orphans are this character called Joy Fakim. She rescues them and gets them away from the traffickers. And the only place that they can go, because she gets shot, she's fatally wounded. The only place that they can go to get away from the traffickers is inside the alien ship. And that group of orphans becomes the first group of people to get inside one of the ships. And that's where the first book ends.
Yeah. I think that is part of your style, right, Lance? I mean, I think I can say that you sort of like to see justice done, right? You like to see the power balanced and people to get their comeuppance. You know, it's in the post office play, right? You have that at the end.
Yeah. By the way, dude, this town has massively grown since I looked at this map. Just sorry to interrupt you, but see this patch here?
Yeah.
That wasn't there before, nor was this one.
Chinese investment, probably.
Well, yeah, wouldn't surprise me. Anyway, sorry, mate. Do continue.
Yeah, no. I was just commenting, really, just on your sort of sense of justice. You know, you like to see sort of justice served.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of social commentary in the book, but I didn't want the book series to be pushing too many social or political agendas. We've got a lot of that going on in our stuff today, and I wanted it to be more about these are 8 very dysfunctional characters. That's what actually connects them. They're dysfunctional. How would the arrival of these ships impact their lives? So the heart of the story is not the ships; it's the people that you meet. The ships are a bit of a MacGuffin in the film, you know, in the thing. And this was written to be a TV series. And one of the things I did in lockdown was I wrote all 10 episodes of season 1. So, and then we read them all. I think you were on a couple of those readings, weren't you? You were on a couple of those.
I was, yeah.
They were great, man. They were so much fun. I really missed them when we stopped doing them.
Right, season 2.
But, you know, hopefully you can be in the online production about Gina Carano. Nina Serrano, totally fictional piece about a show called Galaxy Wars that gets rid of one of their actresses for making controversial social statements. So,
what's she up to now?
Gina Carano's just done a Western. I follow a guy on YouTube called Drunk 3PO. In fact, this hat, the Rebellion hat, is from his merchandise. And in fact, I've got a hoodie of his. Yeah, it's on the chair behind me. There's an Outcasts hoodie there with all the stuff we did in lockdown. And this is a Drunk 3PO. As you know, I do like my hoodies and I like my baseball caps. So, and I liked the idea of having this the Rebellion hat. I like that, the Rebellion, you know. So I've got 3 more of these. They're on order at the minute because this one I've worn it. You know, it's one of the caps that really fits me well. I've worn it everywhere. Look how knackered it is. So I've got 3 more coming.
So you're paying for 3PO's alcohol consumption habit.
Apparently I am. I'm one of the people that's contributing towards it. I like him. He does really good streams. He was the guy who actually started sticking up for Carano and said, hang on, this firing is wrong, because it all came about as a result of a tweet on Twitter.
Yeah, I remember it. But I mean, it seemed quite quickly that there was a route back for her, because she quickly then was picked up by people like, you know, Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire and all of alternative press that's on the internet that sort of just, I remember. So
the Daily Wire's got its own film production now, and they're making their own films, and they did a Western that she was in, which I haven't seen, but I'd really like to see it. The trailer looks good. I love Westerns. You know, I mean, I'm not going to get dragged into fighting a particular narrative around her, Ben Shapiro, etc. When people talk to me and I talk to them about my different thoughts and feelings, and somebody said, oh, you're a lefty. I'm not a lefty. I don't agree with a lot of the things that the left do. I don't agree with a lot of things that the right do. I have different thoughts and feelings about different individual issues.
Yeah.
I'm not all this way or all this way. And life ain't like that. Life's not as black and white as that, you know?
It's true. I mean, like, perhaps, you know, like you're maybe like even like classically liberal or something, you know, that term that a lot of people sort of bias right now. Because, you know,
I mean, I guess I'm more of a liberal than anything, but liberal in my views, but not necessarily with my political vote, you know?
Yeah. You're sort of old Labour and a sort of unionist sort of type.
I wouldn't put myself in a particular box, but I definitely campaign for social injustice, and I think what happened to her was wrong. You see, if you make everything is so under scrutiny these days, all of our social media accounts and everything. She made a comment that got taken out of proportion, not in the entirety of the whole conversation that was being had. She got pulled up for it. She was asked to apologize. She did so. She went and spoke to some people of that particular community. They accepted her apology. In fact, she was very complimentary about them. And she commented on something else, and then somebody else picked up on that and said, oh, she's making comments about the demeaning the impact of the Holocaust and all that. Now, if you actually take a step back and analyze what happened and look at the facts, that's not what the conversation was about. In fact, she was reaffirming factual beliefs in what did happen, It wasn't like that.
Mm.
But trolls, wherever they may sit on Twitter, they love twisting this shit up and fucking with people's heads. And that's what they did to her and her career. And Drunk 3PO was one of the first people to fucking... Yeah, he had a small channel, wasn't particularly big following, I don't think. I didn't know about him then. He was one of the first people to stick up for her and say, this is wrong. This is wrong. This is not right. Back in the old days, if you made a mistake at work, you would go and talk to your boss, you'd have a conversation, you'd apologize, and you'd move on. Now, and Twitter represents such a small fraction of people that actually watch TV shows. Most people I know are not on Twitter. But the problem is, corporations like Disney and stuff like that, they give it too much credit. And they think that the voices that they see on there that try to blow up things and troll people, they think those voices are the only voices that exist, or that they're the only opinions that care or indeed matter. So they get influenced by these people. And actually, no, that's not how working for somebody works. You know, you okay, if you think someone's done something inappropriate or against the regulations of the company, you have an internal process. She found out that she was fired on Twitter. She wasn't told about it. Like first, that's fucking appalling. That's absolutely outrageous. That would not be acceptable in any other fucking profession. Why does Disney think it's acceptable? That's utter crap, man. So, you know, right or wrong, whatever your views on what she said or didn't say, and for anybody that's thinking I'm battling the wrong corner here, go and do some research, proper research. Don't just read one article or go on Wikipedia. Do some proper research. Listen to her interviews. There are several good ones out there. I'm not just talking about the Ben Shapiro interview. She's been on Drunk 3PO's channel several times. There's some great interviews with her on there. And learn the facts about what happened. And those facts don't bear up to what took place.
That's almost part of the issue, though, right? Because you know, we have these like bite-sized sort of tweets. There's these little bits of information to go on, and then who's got time to sort of research it? So you know, the people making the noise about it, you sort of, you know, if you're not in the know, say, if you just take that as a given, you sort of pick up these sort of commentaries on something, you know, somebody said, and it's like, oh, okay, well, it must be true or must not be true or whatever.
Yeah.
Don't have time to research it. That's unfortunately.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, I can't remember if it's Twitter or one of the social media things does, when you get a comment on a story, they do a thing where a message pops up saying you haven't clicked on the link and read the story. Are you sure you want to comment? That happened for a bit.
Right.
I don't know if it's still happening since Musk took Twitter over, but that's actually quite a good thing, because it's reminding people, do you want to check your facts first before you comment? And it's such the nature of everything that we do now is so transient, not just online, but in terms of relationships, online dating. It's so transient. It's so swipe to the left. It's so click a like button and all of that. And we do things like that without really thinking about it. And I'm someone who just does my due diligence on this. And when I see a narrative being shaped a certain way, and I see somebody being vilified in the press, and I'm not quite sure why, or something about it doesn't feel right, I always go and do my own research before I start, you know, lighting a torch and demanding the death of the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Do you know what I mean? So
it's very wise.
It's
very wise. It's like, you know, I guess each of us, we've got a platform to voice our opinions, right? And that's an incredible power to have, to broadcast that to the world. I'm not saying anybody's listening. I don't even have a Twitter account, but we've each got that ability now. So there's also that demand to keep up, right? You know, I've got to voice my opinion about this, that, you know, because you don't want the spotlight off you, or you don't want to leave things to go cold, right? So you've got to keep in the conversation. So there's almost the pressure to comment on things that you don't really know much about.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so one of the things that I like about the critical drinker, Will, is one of the things that's great about him is he will say when he's wrong. He's put videos out. I don't think this film's going to be any good. I suspect it's going to not be great. Or he's made those comments on a stream, and then he's gone and seen the film, and it actually has turned out to be great. And he'll be the first one to go online and say, "Well, fuck me backwards and call me Charlie. This film was actually fantastic." I'm not sure he used that exact language, but you know, he is a guy that will do that kind of thing. And then when I had him on the channel and we were chatting, and I said, "Oh, have you seen so and so?" If he hasn't seen something, he'll say so, and he won't offer comment on it.
Yeah.
He'd seen more episodes of the Witcher prequel show than I could handle. He watched the whole thing. I saw 2 episodes of it. Oh God, that was enough for me.
But
terrible writing.
That's why, I mean, you introduced me to him. I wasn't aware of him before that, but that's what I like about him, that he obviously, well, I don't know if it's his character or actually him, but he puts himself through, you know, all these sort of grueling, you know, like a binge watching Willow or something.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, you've got this kind of really funny sort of, I don't know if it's meant to be funny, but I find it really hilarious sort of, and I guess this is why people like him, commentary on, you know, if I like his bad, I like when he reviews things that are bad, you know, that's the entertainment value for him. For me.
Somebody's just put in the chat, and thank you for this, John. Have you seen Duke Fame's new album? It's a lot more offensive than Smell the Glove, mate. See, he's got like naked women on it and all this kind of thing. That is a quote from Spinal Tap, and I'm just reenacting the scene. What a great film. We could do a stream about that.
Yeah.
So in the new year, Alex and I and a pool of other people are planning on doing a regular stream like this where we'll come on and we'll chew the fat about stuff. We've been going for quite a while, but I feel we should just do a quick. We won't play any of Lone Wolf tonight. We'll do that another time. But
well, I wanted to say, this probably segues back as well.
Go on.
About sort of, you know, technology, and, you know, what if Google Maps didn't exist? You know, you were just whizzing us around the world just then to these various alien landing sites.
Yeah.
And it was making me think about the Magnificent Seven and how special it was to catch a film, you know, back in the day on TV, on like terrestrial TV, you know, like BBC One, BBC Two.
Yeah, because we used to buy the TV guide and have our highlighter in, and you'd get the bumper Christmas edition, which would cover 2 weeks.
Yeah. My mum got it this year. What's on TV?
Yeah. Well, there was Radio Times. You remember Radio Times?
Yeah. But for me, it was great because I first got a TV in my room, must have been about 14.
Yeah, I had one from when I was about 12. It was an old black and white.
Yeah, but
I figured out if I turned the brightness right down, I could make it look like it was off when my mum came up the stairs, and then turn it back up again.
Nice. I'd probably throw a towel over it, mine or something. I don't know. But like, you know, for me, like, there was something quite magical about catching something, almost like, even if you miss like the first 10 minutes of the film, like Alive I caught, it must have been like 12 at night to 2 in the morning, and you sort of, you know, you stay up to watch because you're gripped by the show, the film. You stay up to watch something until like 2 in the morning, and it's like you don't know what it is. Like, you can't just look it up. Like, I used to have, I got given it for Christmas one year, like 2 telephone directory sort of yellow page size film Bibles with like loads of different titles. There were 2. One was for actors, so you could look at actors up like you would sort of a telephone directory, and one for films. So, you know, you see a film on TV and then you think, I recognize that guy. He's been in a film with this actor I know the name of. So you'd go to that film, and then you'd find the name for the actor eventually, and then you'd find the film that you'd seen last night, and something quite magical about that.
Yeah, I remember that. I mean, it was oh God, I mean, it was such a different time, wasn't it? That was when, like, you know, they do things like the James Bond season, or there'd always be a Bond film on at Christmas. There'd be a Bond movie. There'd always be a big World War II film, sometimes two. So you knew as a kid at Christmas, you knew you were going to get to see a Bond movie. You knew you were going to get to see
Indiana Jones.
Well, that came a bit later. I'm talking.
Oh, that was. I suppose
that's your era.
That's my era.
The Christmas from like 77 until, let's say, 1985, which would have been sort of the Tabrizi tadpole sperm years. They were, you know, that was because then 1985, everybody started getting video recorders, and then everybody started renting films. And then by the time you get into 90s, everybody started owning films. But before that, it was a really big thing. The only place you could see films was cinema, television. And they would bring the schedule out and you'd get your marker pen. And then you had that really complex decision of, do I watch The Great Escape, which is on 2:00 in the afternoon, or do I watch The Poseidon Adventure? Because that's pretty good. That's on ITV and it starts at 2:30.
Yeah.
And, you know, and there would be debates in our house about what we were going to watch until we got the second television. Always all good fun, you know. But what have you seen this year that was good for you? Did you go to the cinema at all this year?
Yeah, I did. I went to see what was it? I went to see. No, June was last year, wasn't it? I didn't see June.
Yeah.
The French Dispatch. I think that's about the only film I saw this year at the cinema.
I just watched that for the first time. I forgot to put this on, by the way. I just watched that, The French Dispatch.
So this is hot off the press review.
Yeah, I watched it 3 days ago, and that's what's his name? Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
That film was like Wes Anderson on speed.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah,
full on.
Self.
Because his last couple of films, I think the one he did before that, Grand Budapest Hotel.
I think so. Was it Isle of Dogs? Can't remember.
Oh, Isle of Dogs was the animated one. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, all three of them now are kind of going into sort of Willy Wonka territory, as in his films are so stylized that they feel like they're set in a parallel universe where not everything's quite the same as it is in our universe. It's recognizable, but it's not the same. And it's like the version of a town or the version of a hotel that you would see in a kid's book where, you know, Dr. Seuss has done the artwork and the roofs of the houses have like curly points that go off like that. And characters wear stripy socks all the time, that kind of thing. But did I enjoy The French Dispatch? I don't know. I don't think I'd want to watch it again.
See, I didn't really enjoy it. I thought, like you say, it was. I think because he's so stylistic and, you know, such an auteur. Like, I think you know what you're going to get when you go see a Wes Anderson film. It's going to be, you know, sort of chocolate box, almost, you know, incredible visuals. He's sort of like a Tim Burton, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's like, but he's he is very much in that camp. He's sort of on a slightly different ladder, but in the same box. You know.
And like I was expecting something a bit like whatever Moonrise Kingdom, you know, the same thing he already, you know, always does, Budapest Hotel. No, it was a bit different than that. So I actually would like to see it again because I didn't really enjoy it the first time, but I feel like maybe a second watch would cement an opinion for me.
It was that, I mean, the way that they broke it up into the different chapters about the different stories within the story was clever. And you had the massive chunk about the kidnapped boy and all the police sieging that building and, you know, them poisoning everybody. And then various big name actors would just suddenly sort of pop up in kind of 6 or 8 line roles.
Henry Winkleman was in it, wasn't he?
everybody was in it, man. Like when what's his name? Edward, the guy that was in American History X.
Oh, he's always in. He's usually in Wes
He's
Anderson.
a regular collaborator, but it was a very different role for him. And I can't remember if I hadn't seen the cast list. I just wasn't expecting to see him. And then you had there was about 10 Anderson regulars in it, and then there was about another 10 actors who were clearly in the queue of Anderson. You got a part for me. If it's 2 lines, I don't care. I'll be in it.
Yeah,
I think actors like to be seen in his films because it means they're being serious actors and they're embracing a different style of production and rehearsal and so on.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to know how much rehearsal time they have for a role in a Wes Anderson film. What is the process?
What is the process?
Is it Mike Lee? Do you rehearse for 5 weeks, or is it extremely rigid from the get-go? This is the role, these are the lines. I suspect it's probably the latter.
It's probably go spend a week at Wes Anderson's family home with his parents and like absorb what he, took his influence. And
talking of going to see Dune, when I went to the premiere, I got to chat to Denis Villeneuve 1-to-1 for about 5 minutes.
Said he was a lovely guy.
Really nice man. And I really wanted to tell him about how I had to change the title for Diamonds in the Sky, because the first book was originally called Arrival. And I had to change it to Perusia, and Perusia is the Greek word for arrival. There it is on Amazon. 45 ratings, 4.5 stars out of 5. Lots of 5-star reviews, which is really nice. There's a whole load of them there. Somebody actually gave it. Look, one person's given it a 2-star rating, but they've not actually done a review. And I thought, well, that's a troll, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I wonder if their name was Andrew. Anyway, but I really wanted to say to him, you bugger, you made me change the name of my book, because I was writing Diamonds in the Sky when Arrival came out, and somebody called me and said, Lance, have they made a film of your book you told me you were writing? Because I've seen it. It's called Arrival, and it's about spaceships coming to the Earth. And I was like, oh, fuck off. You are kidding me. And I already had the cover done with the spaceship on. And then I went to see it at the cinema, and I thought, the only thing this has got in common with my book is that it's called Arrival and there are spaceships in it. Beyond that, there's no relation to them.
Yeah.
But I did have to change the title because I didn't want people to think it was based on the movie.
I think you should have laid into him.
No, I didn't. I didn't talk about my own stuff at all. I didn't even tell him I was a director. I just actually thanked him for casting Sharon Duncan Brewster in the part, and then I talked to him for 5 minutes about what an amazing human being she is, and how it was great that he cast her in the film. And I said, and I bet you've got other roles in mind for her on future things. And he said, I have actually. And I said, great. I said, because this is someone who really deserves to have their career. Such a nice human being.
Absolutely.
So what else did you see in the cinema 2022?
Well, that was it. I've been flat out working, so that's about it.
Did you see many TV shows 2022? Anything? I mean, obviously She-Hulk. I know you're a really big fan. You run the She-Hulk fan club, obviously.
Yeah. Without ever seeing an episode, it's really clever. I just Wikipedia it.
Yeah, very good.
Build it around that. I saw some good stuff.
We were not serious about that point.
I've not seen any of the ones probably that are most renowned and other people are all over, right? So I've not seen sort of Rings of Power and your sort of Game of Thrones.
Well, you're not missing anything with Rings of Power, mate.
No. Well, I sort of got a bad vibe about that, after watching the trailer for it. I've seen this world. It looks like a sort of...
The very first trailer for it that came out, it just looked really sort of cheap, and it didn't look right.
Well, I'm someone that gets sort of, you know, if I see things too many times, I just get fatigued with it. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not really interested in seeing that world the 70th time, especially after sort of watching the extended, you know, Lord of the Rings
Which are just
thing.
brilliant. Possibly
Which
3
is
of the
great.
best films ever made ever.
Yeah,
I would
brilliant.
venture.
I saw Inventing Anna. That was good. And
That's a great series with the girl who was in the Ozarks.
yeah, that's right.
Playing the lead role, the true story of Anna Delvey, who kind of
Yeah.
fooled. For those people watching, it's available, I think, on the Disney Channel. There's certainly a documentary about Anna Delvey on the Disney Channel, because I just scrolled past it a second ago before, however long it was, and it's really good. True story of a woman who basically hoodwinked American high society and got loads of money out of them and never paid it for a bean. And good on her, I say. You know, more for them. Did you see either Dope Sick or what's the other one called? I'll tell you in a minute. So Dope Sick is about the Oxycontin crisis in America. And I'm going to tell you now, that's one of the best drama series I've ever seen. And Michael Keaton, who, of course, people will remember played Batman. Now, if you want to see Michael Keaton in probably one of the best roles of his career, you've got to see Dope Sick. And it's like an ensemble piece. You follow all these different characters. Also, by the way, Rosario Dawson's in it. And for those people watching, that's a Tabrizi clown horn. So Michael Keaton plays a doctor who starts prescribing the drug to people when it first comes on the market, pushed by the Sackler family, who were the people behind its creation, and it made them billions. And of course, everybody got addicted to it because it became like this drug that people wanted to give them a high and all the rest of it. And his character plays a doctor who subsequently gets in a car accident, and then his doctor ends up prescribing it to him, and he becomes a junkie. You've never seen Michael Keaton in such a phenomenal role, and his character's got like a massive arc, and he's just really, really good in it. But all of the cast in it are fucking phenomenal. An absolutely amazing cast. British actor Will Poulter is in it. It's probably his best performance as well. And anybody watching who hasn't seen Dope Sick, I can't recommend it highly enough. Another show, and I didn't mention either of these when I was doing my roundup the other day, but I forgot about these, was The Dropout. And that's the true story of the woman who, and this is a phenomenal performance by the lead actress. And my God, she nails the character. She's playing Elizabeth, the girl who was behind Theranos. It was a medical foundation that were pushing a device, that one device would be able to do all blood test results from one single device. And the problem with it was it didn't fucking work. And when they got their first blood test results that were successful, which was for syphilis, they basically said, right, well, we're going to green light it, and they were going to put it in all Walmart stores, and they were using that word wellness. Fucking hate that word wellness.
Sounds like Horizon.
Oh my God, this is the real woman on the right, Elizabeth Holmes, and this is the actress who played her on the left. Remind me of her name. Oh God, let me check on IMDb. It's gone from my head. Amanda Seyfried. Probably Amanda Seyfried's best performance ever. It's an incredible story, and the fact that this woman, nearly succeeded in ripping all these people off, and the implications of it as well. Some people got sent incorrect HIV test results and shit like this, really fucking bad shit. Some people got wrongly diagnosed with cancer, but yeah, I can't recommend it more highly. Those for me were the true story dramas that I saw in 2022, and it was a good year for those.
Yeah.
That was probably two of the best. There was also the one with
Did you see
Stephen Merchant about the killings in East End of London, the gay killings. The guy was drugging young men,
right?
killing them and putting the bodies in a nearby graveyard. That was really good.
Plus,
The Barkingside Murders. Barkingside Murders, it was called.
did you see the thief, his wife in a canoe?
I did. That was good.
That
That
was
was good. Eddie
I-
Marsan was fantastic in it. ITV1, for those people watching. Don't know if you can watch ITV1 in America. I don't think you can. But I think it's also on one of the streaming platforms. I did see it. I think I've seen it on one of the, I don't know if it was Netflix or look under the true crime section. It is there.
Netflix or Amazon. It's one of them.
Yeah. It might be Amazon. My subscription to Amazon's just run out. So I'm debating because, got to cut down expenses, debating what to renew and what not to renew. I can't afford Netflix, Disney and Amazon. One of the three's got to go. Thank you, Nerdly. Nerdly UK has just said it's on Netflix. Nerdly, you need to come on and be a guest with us. We're going to do this chat probably. We're going to try and do it weekly, and Alex won't be able to do it every week because, as you can see from his sexual charged lion-like mane, he's in demand with the ladies, so he won't be available every Friday night. But so I need some other people to come on. But yeah, he was just saying about Poulter was wasted in the role. I don't know, man. That was a 6-part show. Each part was 70 minutes. So I thought Poulter had some pretty good scenes, and his character had a really nice arc. He was a salesman selling the drugs, and then he realized what they were doing was wrong, and he became one of the whistleblowers that helped bring down the Sackler family. He had a really nice arc, his character. I really liked it.
There are quite a few actors, British actors like him, that are just they're so good. And like I've often thought at points in their career, sort of watching them come up, is this the sort of glass ceiling moment where they break out and then they're the sort of next Tom Hardy or something of that level? But I wonder if it's the choices they're making that they don't want to go there to that level of stardom. Like there's Jamie Bell, Will Poulter, Jack O'Connell.
Yeah.
There's
and they're all that crowd. They're all the young generation. They're of a similar age.
Yeah, that's right.
And I've met Will Poulter. I met him at the premiere of Wild Bill. Really nice man. Really nice kid.
Yeah.
Well, he was a kid then. He's a man now.
The Revenant sorted him out.
Yeah. I mean, but carry on about those. Sorry, you'll carry on your comment there.
Yeah, just that they're incredibly talented.
Yeah.
Like was in so he was in the Shane Meadow films, right? That's how he sort of got picked out.
Will Poulter?
No, Jack O'Connell.
I can't remember the first thing that Jack O'Connell did, but wasn't he in that series set in Bristol with all the young kids in it?
Yeah, that was after the Shane Meadows film, though, because Shane Meadows discovered him, I think.
He did. No, I think the film that he did, which was part of that Nottingham.
It was This Is England. That was the film. And he must have been like 10 years old in it.
Oh, yeah. He's really young, isn't he?
Yeah.
No, I do remember. And then he played the main bad guy in that film called The Lake, where that group of youths are terrorizing that couple.
Yeah.
And Thomas Turgoose is also in that movie as part of his gang.
Yeah.
And that's a mental film. Killer ending.
Heavy film.
Well, it's just
after he did a few, and he did like Harry Brown and like films like that as well. And I thought, wow, this guy's really good, one to watch. In the Angelina Jolie film that she directed about.
With the men that survived the plane World War II.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I thought, is this a moment where he's going to be catapulted, sort of next Tom Hardy? But he sort of went under the radar for quite a bit, and I didn't really see him in many mainstream. Well, he was obviously in mainstream movies, but not like the blockbuster.
Yeah, I mean, he's absolutely phenomenal in 71.
70, yeah,
And I'd love to interview the director of 71, Jan Damage. And O'Connell completely makes that film. And I remember when I saw that film, there was about 6 actors in that film that I identified that I wanted in Pegasus Bridge, and O'Connell was one of them. And Barry Keogh was in it, and he's got I think he's got practically no lines, and he's now a Hollywood A-lister. He's just done a couple of Marvel films, you know.
yeah.
Barry Keogh, Sean Harris is in it. Jack Loudon was another one I identified as somebody I wanted in it. Paul Anderson, Sam Hazeldine, who was the son of the late great James Hazeldine. I chatted with him on Facebook not a million moons ago. You know, great cast in that film. Fantastic cast. And I'm surprised that Jan Damage hasn't made more films since then. He did White Boy Rick, and he did an episode of Lovecraft Country, which I didn't see. I don't know if you saw it.
Didn't see it.
I haven't seen White Boy Rick, story of a teenager who became an undercover informant for the FBI during the 1980s and was ultimately arrested for drug trafficking and sentenced to life in prison. Fucking hell, that sounds heavy. Matthew McConaughey is in it. Jennifer Jason Leigh, fantastic actress. Taylor Page, Piper Laurie, Bruce Dern. So you've got a few legends in there. 6.5 on IMDb. But I don't remember even hearing about this movie. Not great. These are some of the headline reviews on IMDb. Actually, let's whack them up. Because you and I both know how difficult it is even to get like one film funded. And, you know, you see, because Jan Damage, independent director, brings out 71, amazing film. I gave it 10 out of 10 on IMDb. I'd give it 10 out of 10 on anything.
Yeah.
And, you know, but he's only done 2 things since then. And I'm surprised. Maybe it's because the difficult second album didn't do that well financially. So you've got a mixture of reviews here, but on the whole, people seem to like it. So I think I'm going to go and find this film and check it out. But it does sound pretty heavy, so it's not a date movie, is it? Let's face it. But that is Jan Damage, who did 71.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you're wondering which of these actors, you know, might be the ones to break out, or I don't know. Jack O'Connell, I don't think he's ever stopped working, has he? He's always seems to be working.
I think that's where I was going with my point is, you know, I'm not privy to his choices, obviously. It could well be that his agent is still sort of fighting tooth and nail to get him in those sort of big hitters. But equally, it could be just that that's a choice, you know, to take on projects that he really, really likes, that, you know, he can develop his craft doing, and just to build a body of work rather than break out into some, you know, sort of inflated stardom. Is just a job, you know, go job to job as an actor, sort of.
Well, he's just done 2 pretty big things, which was Lady Chatterley's Lover, which I haven't watched. I know the story. I've seen 2 or 3 versions of it. I don't really need to watch it again, but good for him. And SAS Rogue Heroes, which I've seen, and I binged it in 2 days. He's very good in it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it.
That's another one we could do a stream about when you have watched it. It's all on BBC iPlayer.
So if you were to recommend, because I've got a very limited, you know, collection of things that I have seen this year, what would you recommend me watch in terms of like a TV series or a film or something? Because you sort of know what I've not watched and what I've watched.
Yeah, I definitely would say watch SAS Rogue Heroes. It takes a lot of liberties, but on the whole, I liked it. I would, by the way, Nerdly is just agreeing with you here. I always have a sense with O'Connell, he's incredibly talented, but maybe doesn't want the top spot, if you know what I mean. And I think Nerdly might be right about that.
Yeah.
And I think O'Connell had quite a turbulent upbringing, from what I've heard. And all credit to him that, you know, he's done incredibly well, and I'm quite proud of him. I used to chat to him on Facebook. He used to be on my friends list. And yeah, we had a few friends in common very early on, and I wrote to him and I said, you know, we're thinking of a role for you in Pegasus Bridge. This would have been about 2015. And then he suddenly blew up. You know, 71 came out. He was everywhere, and he shut his Facebook page down.
Yeah. Wise man.
But yeah, The Dropout. Definitely watch The Dropout, which you can catch on Disney. Definitely watch Dope Sick, which you can catch on Disney. In terms of other shows, I mean, just looking at the banners that I had on the when Drinker was on. Yeah, again, I would say House of Dragon for sure. Definitely also watch 1883. This is such a good show. And 1923 with Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren. Oh God, what a great show as well. And that's the sequel series to this. And they're both prequels to Yellowstone, and they're about the same family. And it's a great idea. And Taylor Sheridan, who created the show, he really understands that world of the cowboy, and it's very real. It feels like you're really going back in time. You're really watching the real history. You know, it's the first time I saw a town, a Western town, where it felt like this is what it was really like.
Yeah.
You know, the gunfights are very quick. They're very brutal. It's very violent, very fast. And
I liked your Tom Ford quote in the Drinker episode the other day. Every film that's been made is a Western, and I can show you how, or however that went.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's I don't know if it was John Ford that said that. It was somebody like that. And Nerdly's just asked if I saw Barry Keogh in Banshees of Inisherin. I have seen Banshees of Inisherin. He did steal the film. It's not a film I want to watch again. It's depressing as fuck. It's like one of them films where you watch it, wow, these performances are really good, but it's about two people that just sort of stop becoming friends because one of them just decides he's got limited time in his life and he just doesn't want to spend any more of it with Colin Farrell's character. And it's a really simple premise with some strange kind of weird supernatural things thrown in, which are more meant to be symbolic than rather actually happening in the movie. Everybody's raving about it, but I for me, it's performances 10 out of 10. As a movie, for me, it's a 7 or 8 out of 10 because I didn't really care about any of the people in it, and for me, that's quite a big flaw. There wasn't enough in it for me to care about them, and that's okay because it was a film about a niche world, and it's set in, I think it's set in like the early 1900s as well. It's a period film because it's set on an island in the, that's disconnected from the Irish mainland, and at one point stories are coming back about the fighting, and the Easter Rising has happened when the Irish Republican Army sort of tried to take on the British and failed miserably and got their asses kicked. And I think he says at one point, we could hear the firing on the mainland for a bit, and it's stopped now. And no one on the island cares about anything other than life on the island. No one wants to go and see what's happening. But it was clever, but it's not a film I'd ever want to watch again. And there's lots of films like that I appreciate, that they're very good.
Yeah, same.
Do I want to watch them again? Maybe not. It took me. I owned a copy of Schindler's List as soon as it came out on DVD. Weren't you round when I stuck that on with my ex?
No.
I seem to recall somebody was staying over and we whacked it on. The first time I watched it again since it came out in the cinema was about 3 years ago. And that was the first time I'd watched my DVD, because it was a film like, God, that was so good, but I don't know when I'm going to be ready to watch it again. I appreciated it a lot more the second time I saw it, because I was looking more at the technical things.
Yeah.
And I think I've watched it 2 or 3 times now since then. And that's a film I will watch again at some point, because there's so much in it that you can take from it, and you do root for characters. And
but there's like a sort of uplifting ending, isn't there, though, right?
Yeah,
for
sure.
So,
yeah.
I tell you what, I mean, that's something that was not a film, but just something incredible that I did earlier this year, which is the theatre I work for put on a Michael Morpurgo play. Based a play based on a book that he'd written about, sort of concentration camps and stuff, because he'll usually write a book that is from the sort of, perspective of a child, sort of child's eye view.
Interesting, which is always a unique, children have a very unique way of looking at things. I like that.
That's right. And he doesn't sort of, the kids are, it's not sort of rose tinted glasses with kids, right? Kids are their own sort of autonomous, sort of free thinking entities that sort of push things forward. He's got a real appreciation for kids because he was a teacher, way back. But what was really amazing is we put on the show based on his book, and as a part of it, we remembered that a couple of years ago that we got into contact with a Jewish World War II Auschwitz survivor living in Ross-on-Wye, which is probably about an hour away from sort of the Cotswolds, which is where I am. So we went to interview her for 4 hours.
How old was she?
Well, she was in her 90s, but I mean, you wouldn't think she was in her 70s. She was
sharp as a button, kind of thing.
So lucid and sprightly. It was incredible. And what was incredible was that her boyfriend, who was probably about 5 years older than her, who'd survived Auschwitz, was also there visiting her from America. And this guy's done like TED Talks and stuff. Like he's like a really big sort of figure. And just seeing them both interact, firstly, sort of being in love and stuff, it felt like a fresh, sort of, almost like a teenage love. They're very sort of besotted with each other. Seeing that dynamic, and then also at the same time, because he had a really dark sense of humor as well, which you can understand. But for 4 hours, they were telling us just these unbelievable stories about what they went through, and they went through pretty much, you look up Auschwitz in a history book. They came into contact with these figures like Joseph
Mengele.
Yeah. They were about. They saw them. They interacted. Just amazing. So, that's probably something from this year that's just stood out for me. I think I'll never forget.
And you filmed that? Those, I mean, is that interview going to drop anywhere? Is it going to go online or?
Yeah, we're gonna. I think. I mean, we're so incredibly busy, but it exists in 2 places. We've got it, and I think it's now we want to sort of approach the the National Archive or the BBC or something and say, because he's gone, he's died. He died a few months ago. The guy. So that's a piece of history, very much like the veteran interviews that we did, 7th Para interviews.
Right.
These
oh yeah. Go on. Lifetime ago.
Yeah.
So, well, we should wrap it up. We've been on like way longer than we said we were gonna.
Yeah.
I think we've been on nearly 2 hours.
2 hours, 15 minutes, 12 seconds. I'm shattered.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. We've had people watching all the way through, which is amazing. I just want to say thanks to those people that have chimed in and chucked comments, especially Nerdly and John O'Sullivan. Bo Romeo popped in as well. He's suggesting I cut my Disney subscription. I don't know, because I want to see the drama series about the about Banerjee, the guy who invented the Oh, the strip, the male strip routine, you know.
Routine.
Not the Dream Boys, they came after, but it's like the first Magic Mike show. God, I can't remember what they're called now. I mean, I haven't been to a lot of male strip shows, so it's not a name that's wedged into my mind. But anyway, they've done a drama series about that. That's dropping on Disney, I think, about the 4th of January. So that's one of the true story dramas I'm looking forward to seeing. So I don't know.
Why don't you just drop your Television X and Pornhub subscription and save a bit of money?
Yeah, Pornhub. Maybe I get rid of that. I don't have a subscription to Pornhub. Fuck that. Oh, funny. Yeah. So final thoughts for 2022. I mean, you know, it's not a year that I'm going to look back on. Probably one of the worst years of my life, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, and of course, you being a close friend, that's impacted me as well. So,
yeah, well, yeah.
Not, you know, I'm not having a go at you at all, criticizing.
No.
Just
thanks for that.
It's inevitable, you know. It's inevitable because we're close. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into personal shit on here. But yeah, very challenging year with a lot of big life events happening for me, couple for you as well. But none of them involved me diving into a toilet in a hotel bathroom only to discover that you were in the shower and I'd committed to dropping my load, and you know, then you had to jump out the shower and escape as the stench was so overpowering. These are the events that bond mine and Alex's friendship forever.
we should do a stream where we just chat shit and.
I thought we just did that.
No, all that.
Yeah, well, no, we should. No. Well, this is going to be a regular stream from now on. Chew the fat. I'm going to get somebody on, and we'll talk about the latest releases and things, but we will also talk about some. We'll segue into all sorts of nonsense. But I like to think that we do some. We cover interesting things. So you know. John's put watch some Joe 90. Dude, I have Joe 90. I've got Joe 90. I've got all the Jerry Anderson stuff. There's my Thunderbird 3 right up there, look. And I've got all of that stuff. So guys, thanks for tuning in. I guess this is the last stream for the Outcasts for this year. The regular time for streams, I think, is going to be, we're probably going to aim mainly for Wednesday nights. Wednesday night around sort of 8 or 9 o'clock. And, you know, and also going to try and get some more guests on. But that's it for now. So I hope you all have a fantastic new year, whatever you're doing. And don't forget to tell the people that you care about that you love them. And we'll see you all again real soon. And thanks to my guest, Alex, for coming on and keeping me company.
Pleasure.
And we are off air.